Hello, and welcome to What's Your Geek, where I talk about what I'm passionate about, what you're passionate about, and what's more obsessive than cataloging over 4,000 pre-painted plastic miniatures in an Excel spreadsheet. All right, so I did have my session 0 of Shadow of the Demon Lord, where the players made up characters, and we actually had enough time because the process was fairly easy, and a couple of players had already made up characters, that we started the session first adventure where the characters are actually level 0 and they only have their ancestry, which is basically um, their anyway. So it was a good session. We had a lot of fun. They kind of overcame the challenge. They were basically been captured and were taken as slaves, and they were able to break free and kill the orc leader because the other orcs had a infighting. But the orc leader was really powerful. Anyway, I'm going to go more into Shadow of the Demon Lord in a separate time in a different episode, maybe even a total bonus episode. After particularly I've had a couple more sessions of play in it, and so likely I'll do that next month. Now, exciting news. I live in Seattle, Washington, and so Renton, Washington, which is the headquarters of Wizards of the Coast, or WotC for short, is where they make Dungeons and Dragons. They also make Magic the Gathering. But anyway, coming June 1st and 2nd, they are going to be featuring community-generated live play of D&D games. So there's a bunch of different people out there that basically live stream D&D games that they play, and it's kind of getting more traction and more entertainment value, and there's different variations. And to celebrate, WotC's invited a bunch of D&D streamers and luminaries to Seattle, Washington to hang out and roll some dice on June 2nd and 3rd. So I think I said 1st and 2nd. I know I'm reading some copy from WotC's website that says 2nd and 3rd, but go ahead and just Google Stream of Annihilation. It'll have all the details. But it is going to be a 2-day event, and it's something that they're saying fans won't want to miss. I know I'm going to check in. They're going to have folks from Misclicks, Maze Arcana, Critical Role, Dice Camera Action with Chris Perkins, not to mention international gaming groups like Yogcast High Rollers from the United Kingdom and Dragon Friends from Australia. Anyway, I'm a little familiar with Maze Arcana. I've watched that. I also watched Dice Camera Action, so I am excited to actually see some of these other streamers too, and I think it's going to be a great time. Now, Geekdom, the frontier of imagination. These are the voyages of Robert Dorgan, his 2-year mission to explore 90 different shelves of original D&D miniatures, to seek out lore and tangential information, to obsessively go where geeks live in their passions and obsessions. So, in case you forgot, I have 9 cases. You can see like 1 here, 2 there, 3 there, and part of the 4th one there. I have 9 cases with 10 shelves each, and I plan to go on a probably close to 2-year weekly stream highlighting 1 case a week. Oh, in case you're wondering what's going on, this is my dog Lily. She wanted to join for a moment. She wanted to say hi, so that is Lily. Her superpower is being really cute, but she thinks she was going to be born the size of a grizzly bear, so she is also tough. Anyway, so my point is, as a reminder, my current count is 4,007 miniatures. 1,330 of those are unique miniatures. In other words, I have duplicates of many of them, but 1,330 are like, I've got this beholder, I've got that dragon, et cetera, et cetera. Anyway, so interesting things in my personal life. I'm going through the official diagnosis process for Asperger's. I've never doubted that I have it, and there have been a couple of friends who have wondered how I know I have it, so I decided to make it official, find out one way or another. So yeah, I'm seeing this therapist, and part of the process is kind of a life review, right? It goes over in a few sessions. In this most recent session, I was kind of going over my history of junior high and high school years. And one of the things I was mentioning to the therapist was I had this best friend, Scott. You may remember Scott was in the previous session. I talked about we had ninja battles with paper bags and stuff in his house. Anyway, I was talking about how I would say to Scott sometimes, "Hey Scott, if you came home and you found your mom and me in your parents' bedroom like fooling around, would you tell your dad?" And Scott would get really pissed. He would get really angry at me. And the therapist was saying, this is the kind of thing that's typical of an Asperger's person, right? Like, it's not unusual or abnormal for a kid in high school or junior high to have a crush on a friend's mom, but normally they just wouldn't tell them about it, right? But with my thought process, I kind of got a kick out of it and didn't realize how potentially offensive that could have been. Anyway, Scott, if you ever happen to see this, I think Scott lives in Arizona right now. If you ever happen to see this, just accept my apology. Know that it was not intentional on my part, or maybe it was, but not intentional in the way that a neurotypical might just trying to be an a-hole, but just partly just kind of ignorance around the Asperger's. Anyway, now we are going to have coming up a look at my second shelf, and it's all about the tiny miniatures in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Hey, welcome back to What's My Geek, and today we are talking about the weird and the small. So what I mean by that is these are all the, whoa, here it comes. These are all my tiny miniatures, and some are even smaller than tiny. Some of them are small. They're small and they're tiny, right? So that's the smallest size is tiny. So you can see, like, let's just give you a comparison, right, real quick. I'll just grab one at random. Oh yes, here's my nice vampire miniature. So this is basically humanoid size, and then we have the halfling. So you can see the halfling is small size, and then you can even more comparison. See their bases, how the bases, his base kind of fits into him, and then you can see there's even tiny miniatures. Like, look at this, a pseudo dragon. It's not even a real dragon, it's a fake dragon. Anyway, you can see how it's even tinier. Like, it really just fits in there, right? Anyway, so this is all about the tiny miniatures, and I am going to tell you a little bit about the history of category sizes in D&D. Basically, I'm really not going to go past before 3rd edition. I'm not going to dwell much into 1st and 2nd. Yes, I played a little bit of 1st edition when it first came out, AD&D, but I was a kid then. I didn't understand the rules. I wasn't really playing by the rules. I took a long break, skipped 2nd edition, skipped actually the advent of a 3rd, and I came back in 2003. Fortunately for me, right when 3.5 was released, so they felt there was enough things in the game they needed to fix, but not a full edition that they came out 3.5. And so I missed. A lot of people were upset, like, 3 years later they having to buy, or not having, but probably are going to buy the new books to get all the new stuff. Anyway, so when I talk about 3rd edition, I'm really talking about 3.5 edition. And they had 9 different size categories for creatures. So the 9 categories were fine, diminutive. I'll try to say that one more time. Diminutive, tiny, small, medium, large, huge, gargantuan, and colossal. Now in 4th edition, and 5th edition carried this through, they said, you know what, it's just too many categories. It doesn't really come into relevance that much. So they cut off the fine and diminutive on the bottom end. So they start with tiny as the smallest, and then they cut off colossal on the bigger end and just ended with gargantuan. Now, gargantuan can go up to be colossal, right? So gargantuan basically means anything like gargantuan size and above. So I was looking for my miniatures, and there are some cool ones. Like here, look, oh, it's a warg rider. So it's basically like a goblin on a wolf, and I've got thought that was kind of cool. And this is actually a kind of a boss goblin. So his wolf is even large size. Most goblins actually are small and ride medium sized wolves. So you can see the difference in size. Like this is a warg, a bit larger, and there's the goblin, right? And again, you see the size of the miniature. Anyway. But as cool as those things are, we've also got the basic, like, halflings, right? Like, they're standard. I mean, basically, Gygax got these from Lord of the Rings, from the Hobbits, but had to change the name because of copyright and legal things. But I decided to go for some of the more weirder and bizarre ones. And what really jumped out at me was this little guy. This is called an intellect devourer. And you may say to yourself, that kind of looks like a brain with legs. And you would be right. That's exactly what it is. An intellect devourer is a brain with legs. Now, in 3rd edition, first, before I get into 3rd edition, I did want to show you its stat card, because all of these miniatures do have stat cards that they come with. And this one is no exception. Here, I'm just looking for it really quick. Yep, here's the stat card, intellect devourer. So again, this is the, keep on remembering to take these out of the sleeve. I love plastic sleeves. These ones are like a penny. Oh my God, they're just so cheap. I get them on Amazon, but you can probably buy them in card stores. Anyway, there's the Intellect Devourer. There's like the card, the stat side for the miniature battle game, and then here's the Here's the role-playing stats right there. You can see this thing has just got a lot of, if you see right there under spells, I mean, they're really psionic abilities. You can see this dude has just a lot of stuff going on. In third edition. In third edition, monsters tended to be more complicated, a lot longer stat blocks, more stuff going on. But I will say, and this particular Intellect Devour was statted out in the expanded Psionics Handbook. So basically what Psionics were in third edition as well, they're a better version of spells. I mean, they were just more customizable, more powerful. You could wear armor, and like a Scion was basically a wizard who could wear armor and could customize the spells, could increase the power, like by like you know, you can imagine turn the volume like on your speaker or something, and it's got numerics like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, etc. Well, that was a psionic, right? They could customize that volume exactly what they wanted to do. It was broken, and I loved it. I played a Scion, and I could wear armor. You could use side points for precision. I actually found my old character. This is an 18th level guy, so kind of like godlike, but his name was Mordecai, and I mean, just his abilities alone, right? His abilities alone were kind of nuts. And you can see like this a whole list, right? This is like a 3-page sheet. There's abilities. His feats start here, right? And then feats continue on to the next page. And then I got all my powers, which are basically my spells. You can see like that is just a way long list, right? And one of the cool things that Mordecai could do is I could basically shape change into anything, basically, pretty much like a war troll, for example, which is like a troll on steroids. And I could change into that, have all the powers and abilities of that. So be this uber tough fighter. Oh, and I still had all my psionic powers too, right? I mean, I still had, it was just a lot of fun, a lot of craziness. Anyway, back to the Intellect Devour. So this guy was, I'm not going to go into all the kind of stuff he had, but he was just tough. One of the things that really stood out was he has damage resistance 10 adamantine. That means anytime you hit the creature, unless your weapon, it could be +5 magical vorpal blade, but it's not made of adamantine, which is like this super hard metal. He cuts 10 points off any damage. So if you hit him for a whopping 20 points of damage, and it's like a +5 vorpal sword, well, guess what? He just took 10 only instead of 20, right? So that's just one thing that sticks out. But these guys have the ability to basically take over your mind. They can like basically eat your brain and they basically like just phase into your head where your brain used to be and basically control your body. I mean, I think that's pretty scary, right? And they were a CR7, so challenge rating 7. So at the 7th level, characters are, you know, that's mid-level. So that to me, that feels appropriate. Yeah, you're venturing out of the villages and the cities. You're starting to get us in the lower parts and the deeper parts of the dungeon, and it's totally appropriate that you would encounter these, you know, weird aberrant creatures. And then their origin wasn't very specific in that expanded Psionics handbook. It just said that they stalk their prey, sometimes work for more powerful creatures. Now, in 4th edition, they came up with 3 different versions of Intellect Devour, and they were first statted out in the Monster Manual 3. So basically, the Monster Manual sort of had themes, or at least the 3rd one did. The Player's Handbook 3, the Monster Manual 3, all were focused around psionics. Psionics has been something that has been in the game since 1st edition D&D, but it's always almost kind of been like an appendix. Like at one point, I mean, that's not the best analogy, but my point is it doesn't really quite fit in. Like my appendix is something that I don't need anymore, which is kind of the opposite of psionics. It's something the game didn't need, but it added in, right? And a lot of people, and it was kind of this odd sort of its own system, and so the different editions have tried to like handle it, you know, try to figure it out. Because in 1st edition there was this crazy percentile table, and it was all wacky, and if you didn't have any psionics, and it was rare that you did because you had to roll percentiles and get really high to even have them, you were totally vulnerable to people who had psionics, and it was totally separate from your character class and your race. It could just be this extra thing that you could have, you know. And I don't know if they did in 2nd edition, but 3rd edition they tried to make it more like spells, but they just made it more powerful, right? And kind of the thing is, 3rd edition had so many books coming out, and part of the way you help sell books is you produce and release more powerful stuff. It's called power creep, right? Because then players, if you're just staying flatlining and getting the same level of power, it's not as much interesting to buy that stuff. And so when Psionics came out, it was later in the game, and yeah, the power creep had set in. Now in 3rd edition, or 4th edition, excuse me, I think they did a better job of handling it. You know, I'm not saying there wasn't any power creep at all, but I think overall Psionics in 4th edition wasn't nearly as broken or overpowered as it was in 3rd edition. But in 4th edition, again, they come back to the multiple different, uses. You can see the picture of the dice kind of stays the same, right? And that's pretty basic. You've got your brain and you've got your legs kind of going on, but they've got 3 different versions of it. And they also give it some lore. They say that they're psychic parasites that are birthed from the madness of the far realm. So the far realm is sort of this alien Cthulhu-like alternate reality where logic and rules don't apply, and it's where mind flayers come from. Mind flayers are the humanoids with the little squid-like tentacles. And so my point around that is, okay, folks, I got to say one thing. When you're trying to do a YouTube recording, oh my God, now my Alexa's talking to me. I'm just trying to do a YouTube recording, and everything is like suddenly, I mean, I can go for 5 hours in a day, no phone calls, no one talking to me, and now suddenly, Lily, stop. Now my dog's barking at me, everything. Anyway, back to the Intellect Devourer. The Monster Manual 3 Intellect Devourer, they had 3 different versions. The Intellect Predator, the Ustilagor, I don't know why they had to give it a different name, but the Ustilagor was the smallest one. They were listed level 7, and that was this many. I mean, it was made in 3rd edition, but they kept the same size. It was a small size miniature. And then the Intellect Predator was the 14th level, so now we're getting into the Paragon level to, since 4th edition went up to 30th level. This was like the mid-range. And then they even had an epic level, Intellect Glutton, which is actually a large size Intellect Devourer. So I think the smallest one's scary enough, but if I saw this ginormous brain coming at me, I'd really freak out. Now, the one thing that does bother me in 5th edition, they also have the Intellect Devourer. At this time, they didn't wait. They put it right in the Monster Manual. But it, again, you can see, there's the brain with the, so the look doesn't change really much. What else can you do, right? It's a brain with legs. But they made it a challenge rating 2. Like, what are you thinking? Like, 2nd level characters are finding a walking brain, and they even go deeper into the lore, saying, oh yes, they're created by Elithids. Elithids do some weird set up morphosis process. That was a word that I kind of half garbled, half made up, to turn them in. So they actually changed, and I think actually it's kind of a cooler origin thing rather than the far realm just sort of spontaneously spawning these creatures. They're actually like created by the mind flayers, because I think mind flayers are creepy, weird dudes, and knowing that they make these dudes and they make them out of like living sentient beings is really awesome. But to make them a CR2, I don't get that. I mean, and one of the weird things is 5th edition, or even 4th edition, and 3rd edition, which dates back to 1st edition, there was like save and die effects, right? Like someone might say, I'm a wizard, I cast and disintegrate. You make a saving throw, oh, you failed, you're dead, right? Or the Medusa tries to petrify you with her, her stony gaze or her snake-like hair, and or literally snake hair. And you make a save, you fail, bam, you're petrified, that's it, right? Until you get like a stone to flesh scroll or spell. But they kind of thought, well, save and die effects aren't that much fun because it's like one single roll and you just can happen to roll poor, and then that's it, right? Your 12th level fighter is all decked out and awesome, rolls like a 1 on his D20, and he just auto-failed the save, and now he's disintegrated, right? All this stuff into ash. But here's the weird thing. In 5th edition, it's not exactly a save or die effect, but it's pretty scary, and it's only a CR2 creature. So basically, he tries to devour the intellect in 5th edition. You have to make a DC 12 intelligence saving throw against this, or take 11 psychic damage, 2d10 psychic damage, 11 average. Not that bad. Okay, that's good. At 2nd level, that's some decent damage to do to a player potentially, but not crazy. But here's the weird part: on a failure, roll 3d6. The DM rolls 3d6. If the total equals or exceeds the target's intellect score, that score is reduced to 0. The target is stunned until it regains at least 1 point of intelligence. So the average roll on 3d6 is an 11. So you have to beat their intelligence. You just have to match it. Now, some ability scores like dexterity, even if you're not like a class that wants to, like a rogue is really dependent on dexterity to be stealthy or to do your attacks with, like with finesse weapons, you still might care about it for initiative, right? For armor class bonuses. Like a wizard might still have extra points. Yeah, put some dexterity. In the same way, You may not care about wisdom unless because you're like, oh, I'm not a cleric or I'm not a druid. But guess what? Wisdom offers perception, so you can like be aware of your surroundings. It offers insight. So there's many things that go along with that, right? So my point is, with these kind of things, is that see the interruptions just keep on coming. So my point is, with intelligence, yeah, there's some knowledge skills like history or religion or arcana, but unless you're actually like a wizard, or someone who really, maybe like you're like the arcane trickster version of the rogue in 5th edition, you probably are just going to leave your int either a 10 or dump it to an 8, right? And so even if it's a 10, even if you leave it at a 10, which is like, right, it costs you 2 points if you do the character by. This guy on average rolls an 11 with 3d6. That means bam, right? You fail that save, bam, your intellect went to 0 and you're stunned. And when you're stunned, the dude can basically take over your body. And at 2nd level, the ability to restore intelligence or the ability to restore ability scores isn't really that available at 2nd level. So I think it's kind of odd that they made these guys. Yeah, armor class 12, 21 hit points. I mean, they're not hard to hit. They don't have a lot of hit points, but they get to you. You're screwed, and because they're hanging out with mind flayers, which are CR7s, you might say, oh well, at 7th level, maybe players can restore ability scores and do more stuff like that. But the challenge with that is if you're fighting a mind flayer and some little dude with brains walking around, and you're not like solely versed on the Monster Manual 5th edition, you might be focused more on that that mind flayer, that squid-like head that's blasting you with psychic energies and stunning everyone and trying to slip your brain, and you might not pay attention to these little tiny or small brains walking around until bam, you fail a save, right? And you're like, let's say you're a 10th level fighter and you got a 10 in. Well, I just rolled the average 11. Guess what? You're in 0 now. I mean, and it's going to take your freaking body over. So it's a weird choice to me. I think that the Intellect Devourer definitely should have had a higher challenge rating in 5th edition, and I don't know why they did that. If anyone has any clues or insights, I would love to hear about it. All right, well, that was I think in every episode, I kind of get into a little rant because I care so much about this game. I love this game so much that things just speak to me. Now, what am I going to do next? Well, I think I'm going to show off the Imp, another one of my little favorite dudes. This is actually a tiny creature. He's got a really small base there. And this is the Imp, and they later came out with a grinning Imp, which is a little bit bigger than the Imp, and I like the Imp better. Sometimes they come out with new miniatures, new versions, and it's kind of hard to see, but I don't know. I just like the first version of the Imp because it's a darker color. This one, it's hard to see, but it's a little bit more lustrous, which I think makes it look more like a toy. This looks a little more real. Now, the Imp I think is a really cool monster because they're actually one of the weakest types of devils, but they have the ability to turn invisible, and they also have a poison stinger on their tail, which can deliver a nasty amount of poison, considering that they're just like a low-level creature. Now, personally, I've had a lot of fun with imps, running them as a DM, because they're not just like run in there and kill the imp and be done with it. It's more like they're usually serving some evil spellcaster. And generally, they turn invisible, and they hide, and they follow people around, and they sneak out when you're not expecting it, and bam, sting you in the back. Or, even more fun, you kill their boss, and then they try to make a deal with you, because they're devils. They're not demons, right? So they are lawful evil. They are, like, orderly. They will stick to their agreement, though they will try to bend or break it if possible if you don't make the agreement well. And so they can offer cool things, and it's kind of a cool opportunity for me as to role play this little kind of sniveling creature that wants to be helpful, but that you can't entirely trust, and so it keeps the players sort of off guard a little bit. Like, what should we do? And some players like unequivocally, we want to kill it. Other players like maybe there's a wizard. It's like, oh, maybe I can make him my familiar because they can, depending on the edition, they can have some cool powers. So in 4th edition, the Imp was found in the main monster manual, and it's under Devils. And I am stalling for time because one of the things is I thought I had bookmarked everything, and with all these interruptions was happening, I think what happened is the bookmarks fell out. Yeah, so the 4th edition Imp is as a level 3 lurker, which means they kind of try to hide and turn invisible, and they're low level. And it says they act as spies and emissaries for more powerful devils. Mortals often make bargains with imps, thinking that weak devils are easy to control. Ultimately, most imps prove their loyalties lie with the lords of the 9 hells and not any mortal master. So that's cool. I like that. It's pretty typical. Nothing too outrageous there. And again, in 5th edition, the imps once again become part of the devils, and they are weak and low level. And but they do have rules. They have a variant. You can have an imp familiar, so they actually even make it part of the game, which is kind of cool. They're the lower end. In terms of the lesser devils, they're like the weakest. There's actually Lemirs, which are these like little like kind of gooey guy-like dudes are even weaker. But yeah, the imps are at the low level, but they keep their invisibility, keep their ability to have the poison stinger. They're a CR1, so low-level challenge. They can also shape change into a rat, a raven, a spider too. It's kind of cool. Yeah, and I don't know. I just like imps. In case you're wondering, that's the mirror right there, and then there's the picture of the imp. Pretty good rendering of it. But anyway, I just like them because I think they're fun, something to spice up the game, something you can kind of more than just your typical kill the monster and move on. But maybe I want to make a pact with it, right? And definitely a possibility in 5th edition. And it's interesting too because it's listed in the monster manual. It's not listed in the player's handbook, but it says basically, yeah, you can have it as familiar. You're bonded within 1 mile. You sense each other, and within 10 feet, the imp has magic resistance, which means it gets to roll twice and gets advantage on saves versus magical spells and effects and stuff. And that grants it to grants that power within 10 feet to its master, which can be really cool if you're like playing a wizard or something, or a sorcerer or a warlock, because you can have the imp just be invisible, so it's hard to target or see it's there, and it's granting you some magic resistance. So it could be, a pretty cool familiar. However, if I did let my player have the imp familiar, I'd definitely make them pay for it in some way or another. Have that imp be testing them, trying to use them, and trying to get its own hidden agenda through. And now let's come to the third and last miniature I'm going to talk about. And I picked out the bronze dragon wormling. So this is basically the youngest stage of a dragon's life that it exists in statistic form. And I guess you can kind of imagine this is probably how they were born, about this young, right? And some people, it's interesting, some people have a thing around dragons, like it's Dungeons and Dragons, like it's like pretty much the iconic monster of the game, right? It's in the title of the game. And some people think, like, because of that the dragon should be only faced at higher levels, like 10th, 11th, 12th, above, and just seeing these wormlings or these young dragons kind of like throws them off their game, right? In 3rd edition, the wormlings were around challenge rating 2 to 4. In 4th edition, the weakest dragons, they got rid of that terminology. They call them young dragons, and they're ranging around level 4 to 7. And 5th edition brings back the age categories, more similar to 3rd edition, but albeit with less categories. And they use wormling as the weakest of the dragons, with a similar challenge rating to 3rd edition, around 2 to 4. And my question is, because I've thought about this, some people are like, oh, the first time you face a dragon, do you want to be like 3rd or 4th level, and it's kind of like almost like a baby dragon, and you kill it, and do you feel heroic, do you feel awesome, and what was the dragon doing anyway, right? Or would you rather wait, until you're like 7th, 8th, 10th, 12th, maybe even 15th level, and so the first time you see a dragon, 15th level might be a little too long waiting, but the first time you see a dragon, like your 9th, 10th level, and it's like, oh my god, we're finally fighting dragons. Like, the name of the game is Dungeons and Dragons, and we're finally fighting dragons. Like, I think I kind of favor more towards that end, right? I don't know if I was running the game if I would throw in any dragons, any young dragons or any wormlings. I would think I would go for more like probably the large or the smallest dragon. I want to go, and probably like at least like a challenge rating, like 9, 10 level, like around that level for the players. That's my personal proclivity, and you may have your own version of it. Speaking of editions of the game, I want to give a shout out to 13th Age. I am wearing a 13th Age Game Master t-shirt. 13th Age is a game that was made by Rob Heinsoe and Jonathan Tweet. And Jonathan was a lead designer on 3rd edition Dungeons & Dragons, and Rob was lead designer on 4th edition Dungeons & Dragons. And 13th Age to me is kind of their love letter to the game, to the fantasy role-playing game of Dungeons & Dragons. I love it. It's a really awesome game. Sometime I want to do a whole episode just on 13th Age and what is so cool about it. And this is totally unofficial. I don't think that Rob or Jonathan necessarily agree, but I sort of see 13th Age as sort of taking the best of 3rd edition and the best of 4th edition and really combining that with some of the best stuff in independent games, right? And putting it all together. So it's really a cool story base. It's got some really cool mechanics. Again, if I were going to have a dragon in 13th Age, I would definitely make them strong. So I couldn't help myself. When I started talking about 13th Age and dragons, I had to go check my 13th Age book. And yeah, they have weaker dragons in there too. They start dragons at lower levels. And so I guess really, you know, if you don't have the lower level dragons and someone wants them, it's kind of like, well, that sucks. And if you don't want to use the lower level dragons, well, just ignore them. Don't use them. Now, back to my contest from last week. Guess the name of the miniature. No one has guessed it yet. I'm going to give everyone one more week on that miniature, and then next week I'll reveal the name if no one's guessed it, and maybe tell you a little bit about it. And this week I got a new miniature. This also comes from the small collection. This is a very weird looking dude. You can see, look at that, his eyes and his mouth kind of glowing. He's got wings. Kind of, does he have, doesn't look like he has any hands or something. No. Just really look at this dude. There's no appendages like hands or anything. He can't really grab stuff, but man, he kind of does look, would you think sinister? I would think very sinister. Anyway, guess the name of this miniature. I only have one. Like some miniatures I have multiple copies of. This is a miniature I just have one copy of. And anyway, guess his name. Be the first person to submit a guess in the comments in my YouTube channel, and I will send you a miniature. Oh, did you forget? Oh my God, this thing is so heavy. The old box of miniatures that I bought off my friend who moved to California, and I plan to sell them. And I've sold a few, but most of them, oh, look at that big snake-looking dude. Oh. Anyway, they're still around, and they probably will be around for a little while. But you know, eventually, I do plan on selling them, and then once they're all sold, well, I won't be able to send anyone a miniature. So it's your chance to get a really potentially rare, awesome miniature. And I pay all the shipping and postage, so there's really no cost to you. So, in closing, thank you for watching another episode of What's Your Geek. Please subscribe to my channel, leave a comment, tell me what you liked, what you didn't like, and what do you think about characters fighting dragons at low levels? Are you a fan, or do you think there's something that should be reserved for when the players are more powerful and makes a bigger impression on the players? So, you would think last time, since I had so much trouble finding a D20, that I would have been better prepared, and you'd be wrong. So today, to shake it up, I've got a D30. What's a D30? Well, it's basically a D20 with 10 more sides. So until next time, roll a crit or even roll a 30.